Now, Professor Bae, you are also a single mom. And just for clarity, are you a single mom or are you a solo parent?
I am a single mom through and
Okay.
through.
Same, same. And then you're part of the one and done crew as well, right?
I am
Okay.
absolutely.
So, talk to me a little bit about kind of what led you up to being a single mom, and then how did you make the decision to just be one and done?
Okay. So that question is kind of twofold for me. I'll start out by saying I am an eldest daughter.
Hmm.
So, with me being an eldest daughter, I had a lot of responsibility early, and I knew very early on that I did not want to have a lot of children. I
Right.
actually thought I wouldn't have any, but then I said if I do have a child, I will have one child. And so
Okay.
I have always known that I would not be a mom of multiples since I was a child.
Hmm.
Now, what led up to me being a single mom? His dad and I were in a relationship. We were together. Um, I will say a little bit before I got pregnant, I started to notice like a flip or a
Hmm.
change. I was young, didn't necessarily pay attention to the signs. And so once I got pregnant, the mask like really fell off, and I
Hmm.
really started to see his dad for who he truly was. And at some point during my pregnancy, I decided like I know it's a possibility that I'm gonna have to do this on my own,
Right.
not because he didn't want to be with me and have a family, but because I was growing as a person. And it's
Hmm.
just something about being pregnant that as a woman, you have like an immediate flip, like your
Right. Right.
mindset changes and everything. And I said, I'm not sure that I can stay in this situation with him.
Hmm.
He did propose. He proposed to me a total of 3 times. Um, and I said no again because I knew that he was not somebody that I wanted to be married to and to raise a family with. And so that's
Right.
basically how I became a single mom. And it was fairly early on. Once I gave birth, he was there throughout the pregnancy, doctor's appointments, and everything. So we stayed together during that process, but it was a little rough.
Hmm.
After I gave birth, there was an incident that occurred, and decided right then and there that that was it. I went to my 6 week checkup. Once the
Hmm.
doctor cleared me, I made up my mind that I was going to leave that relationship, and I packed up my stuff when he was at work, and I
Wow.
left.
Wow. That's bold and brave. And that takes a lot of confidence to do, right? Because I can imagine as a new, not just a single mom, but as a new mom, right? You have all of these feelings, you're flooded with all of these hormones. And then to make that decision, talk to me a little bit about when you were making a decision like that, right? If when you decided to pack up while he was at work, kind of what was going through your mind. Um, if you had to do it over again, would you do it the same way? Would you leave with him at work, or would you have a conversation with him and then decide kind of if you had to do it again, what would you do?
So he had started to display abusive
Mm.
characteristics and traits.
Okay.
And so for me, my mindset was getting out of that situation
Right.
safely. And then he was the type of person, he's very persistent. So I knew me having a conversation with him, he was going to try to persuade me to stay,
Right.
and us work it out. Because he, in his mind, like we were like the perfect family. Like
Right.
he saw us being together and raising our child. And so during that process, I knew that my best bet, my safest bet would be for me to leave while he was at work. I did write him a letter letting
Hmm.
him know that I was leaving and I wasn't coming back, and I left the letter on the countertop. And if I could go back again, I would have left him before I got pregnant.
Okay.
Hindsight is always 2020.
Right.
But I probably would have done that situation the same in terms of leaving
Absolutely.
while he was at work. Yeah.
Especially if he was displaying abusive behavior.
Hmm.
That was definitely the right decision to keep yourself safe as well as your child.
Hmm.
You mentioned that you're the eldest daughter. I too am the eldest daughter. Would you say that your experience as the eldest daughter, um, had an impact on what you thought motherhood would look like for you? Or did you just, I know that you mentioned that you had never really thought about having children, and I can completely understand that as an eldest daughter. Would you say that that experience as the eldest daughter impacted on your journey into motherhood
It,
outside of what you experienced with your son's father,
it
with your child's
definitely,
father?
yeah, it definitely did. Again, I knew that I was not going to have a lot of children. And coming into me being a mom, you think you have an idea, especially as an
Mm-hmm.
eldest daughter, because you've been in a parental role for so long. But me stepping into motherhood actually did the reverse of what I thought it was going to be. I actually thought of it from a space where this was something that I could be good at,
Right.
and I could do it in the way that I thought motherhood should look. And so it gave me the opportunity to do that, because as a parentified eldest daughter, you're parenting through the lens oftentimes of your mother or your
Mm-hmm.
parents. And so you're parenting in the way that you think they would want you to parent or how they tell you to parent.
Right.
And so with me becoming a mom, I recognize that, oh, this is going to be my opportunity to ultimately be the kind of mother that I didn't necessarily have.
Right. That's that. Yeah, that makes sense. I love that you took that approach because I didn't really think about it like that. My
How
head
did you
was in
think
a
about
cloud.
it?
Girl, I didn't even want to be a mother. Okay.
Understand? Understood.
I didn't. I never
Understood.
wanted to be a mom. And so pregnancy was very difficult for me. I suffered from perinatal depression. It was very severe.
Mm,
And I tell people, like, I used to sit in a shower in the dark for 3 or 4 hours crying because I could not believe this is not what I saw for my life.
mhm,
And how did I get here? Why am I here? I don't want children. I never wanted to be a mother. But I realized it was because I thought that I couldn't be a good mother because I
mm,
never really saw what it meant to be a good mother. So I thought that I was going to have that same kind of experience. So I didn't go into it like, oh, I could do this differently. I went into it like, I can't do this at all.
yeah,
And I don't know how I'm going to make it through, but obviously I'm here now. So
mhm.
I love that you took that approach. And so now where you are today, if you had to become a mother again, would you choose motherhood again?
No, I would not.
Okay.
I would
Talk
not
to me
choose
about that.
motherhood again. Being a single mother, without a doubt, is one of the most challenging things that you can ever do in life. I mean, I've gone to college. I mean, I've done the hard things in life.
Right.
And being a mother is by far one of the most challenging things that I have ever had to do.
Hmm.
And just knowing how the world is changing, and knowing what mothers have to put up with, specifically single mothers, because there's just no time off. Like, you're
Right.
always on, and there's always something to do, and you never get a break from motherhood. And just coupling that with everything that's going on in the world, and just who I've grown to become,
Hmm.
um, I would not choose to be a mother again. I would be a rich auntie. For sure.
Yeah, I'm not mad. I'm not mad at all at that. Do you miss your life before you were a mom? Do you miss who you were before mom?
Um, I would say no, not at this particular stage in my
Good.
motherhood journey.
Hmm.
There was a point where I did. I had to mourn who I
Hmm.
was and what I thought my life was going to look like before I became a mom, because I was a very much on the go type of
Hmm.
person. I'm traveling, and I'm working on my education and my career, and I mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah.
I get that. And it sounds like the reason why I wanted to talk to you is because we have so much similar experience as the eldest daughter, as a parentified eldest daughter, and just very much go getter. I don't want any kids. I'm living my own life. And then to see kind of where you are in motherhood, what that journey has brought you to today, it's it's a very unique experience.
Mhm.
And single motherhood is a unique experience in itself, but I think that when you become a mother, there is a difference between someone who wants to be a mother, whether they're a single mother or not, and someone who kind of struggled with that decision because I've had all of this other experience growing up. I don't know if I want to have the burden of being a mother. So yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. Tell me a little bit about what are some ways that you, during your mourning process, how did you honor the person that you were before you were a mother? So, in the process of mourning your child free life, what were some things that you did to kind of like honor who you were and where you're going and who you're becoming?
I honored my old self by saying she's there. She hasn't gone anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to learn how to adapt because she's growing and she's changing now that she's a mother. But who you are at the core, she's still very much there. And there is a way that you can still have what you had or be who you were prior to motherhood while still growing into
Mm-hmm.
motherhood and actually enjoy the process. And so it took a while. It took a while, but I did a lot of meditation and a lot of reflecting. I started going to the gym a lot and working
Mm-hmm.
out, and I've always been a reader, so just reading a lot and just accepting who I was becoming and accepting that okay, you are a mother now. This is what you chose. This is the decision that you made, and you're gonna fare better as a mom if you accept it,
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it, and learn how to enjoy it and make it a part of who you are growing to be.
I love that. How long did it take for you to get to that point?
My son was probably elementary school.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I would say when he got in about elementary school, so it took about 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happened was he started to grow and he started to be more independent.
Right.
And with his independence, allowed me to give myself a little bit more time and a little bit more energy. And by that time, roughly, his dad and our situation started to kind of level out a little bit because it
Mm-hmm.
was a very toxic
Mm-hmm.
situation. Leaving him, he was pissed
Right.
about me leaving him. So I mean, did everything that he could to make my life a challenge and make it hard for me. At least like the first 5 years, and even after that, but those first 5 years were very difficult. I had postpartum, dealing
Mm-hmm.
with coming off of a breakup. He's abusive. I'm trying to figure out motherhood and
Right.
where I'm going with my career. And then also not having a lot of support
Mm.
in motherhood from my own mother.
Right.
And so I had to deal with that and process that. And so it took a long time.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah. That I agree. I think 5 to 6 is that sweet spot. I was actually telling a friend the other day who's contemplating having children, and I was telling him that the newborn phase, you're in bliss. You just want to hold them, sniff them, smell them. But it's something about like 1.5 to 5 where you're just like, what was I thinking? How did I get myself into this?
Yeah. And because it's so much
It
involved in
is.
that 1 to 5 day. They're learning to walk and
Mm-hmm.
they're learning to potty train and it's just
Right.
so much and they're
And they're becoming a
growing rapidly.
person.
Yeah.
And they have their own
Yeah.
feelings and emotions, and they're
Mhm.
aware of those feelings and
Mhm.
emotions, and they want to test boundaries. And
Mhm.
yeah, and then right around 6, you're like, oh, okay, you're actually
Mhm.
pretty cool. We can
Mhm.
hang
Yeah,
out,
we're
right?
friends now. Yeah.
Now, how many siblings do you have?
Four. I'm the oldest
Okay.
of four.
The reason why I asked is because I did a segment on kind of what it looked like being the parentified eldest daughter and a single mom, and the absence of community, and how oftentimes, it is jarring, right? Because
Mhm.
you've put all of this, your all, into your sisters and brothers, into your parents, your mom, helping raise her children. And then when you have your child, there is an expectation there
Mhm.
that you will have the support that you gave out.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So when you mentioned that you didn't have as much support as you thought that you would, especially with your mom, talk to me a little bit about what that looked like then and what does it look like today?
Okay. So she when she found out I was pregnant, she was pretty positive about that experience. She definitely said, "Oh, well, you need to get married." That whole thing. She was there for his birth, but she left immediately after the doctor delivered him. He was, washed up, and the doctor basically said, "Okay, everything is okay. They're doing well."
Mm-hmm.
She left. We were living in two different cities at the time. It was 2 hours apart. We were 2 hours away from one another. So she drove to the city where I had him. Again, just I would say maybe a couple of hours after I gave birth, my mama was on the road back
Oh,
to
okay.
the city. So I did not have a lot of support from my mother. My grandmother was living then. And
Mhm.
so that she was also living in a different city. And my grandma and I had always had a very close relationship. We were really, really close. And so she became my support system along with an aunt and uncle that I had in the same city with me. But of course, they had their own lives.
Right.
And so my grandmother convinced me to move with her, or sort of, but there was an
Mm-hmm.
issue with my mom and I, and her saying, I know you want to get out of this abusive situation, you should come here and I will support you. I got there and the support was not there,
Mm-hmm.
which led to a back and forth situation with my mom and I ended up going with my grandmother, and that's who was my support system until she passed away, and she passed away when he was 3.
Mm-hmm.
So when she passed away, I had forgiven my mom. A lot of what transpired between that time, again, I was going through postpartum. So
Right.
some stuff was a blur. Like I knew, we had an issue, but it was like, that's my mama. And so
Right.
she convinced me to move to the same city with her once my grandmother died. And it was under the guise that, hey, you don't have support, so come here and let me be your support system. And that just did not happen. And we lived in the same city up until we moved, and he was 7 when we moved.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did not have support from my mother then as it relates to him. I don't even know. Maybe I don't even know if I could have called my mama to pick him up in the event of an emergency. That's
Wow.
the lack of support that I had. And that actually prompted me, along with just being a fed up eldest daughter, because I was in the same city with my siblings and they were still dependent on me. And I was trying to
Right.
balance motherhood. And that's what actually convinced me to move away. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I already don't have a support system.
Right.
So I might as well move to a city that I want to be in and create my own village and raise him. And that's what I've been doing. And since we've been here, her relationship as a grandmother and that support has not been there
Mm.
at all.
Wow.
Mhm.
Does your child have a relationship with her?
He did. He did prior to us moving here. And once we moved here, the distance and just her not taking the initiative
Right.
to have a relationship with him as he grew, it just kind of, kids are kind of out of sight,
Right.
out of mind. So now it's to the point where it's pretty non-existent. At first, he would ask, like, "Can I go with her?" During school breaks, and after a while of being her basically rejecting him,
Right. Right.
it came to a point where he was just like, "Okay," and he now it's non-existent.
And he's 12?
12, he'll be 13 this
12.
year.
Wow. What does it feel like as the eldest daughter? What does it feel like as the eldest daughter who had to sacrifice, right? Because it's not like you just woke up one day and you decided, I'm going to take care of my sisters and brothers. No, you were trained that way. You were
hmm
brought up that way. Um, what does it feel like to not have that relationship, that support with your
Um,
mom?
Betrayal.
Mm,
That's the word that I can think of. I also feel used in a sense
mm-hmm.
because I feel like at this point, my mother no longer has a need for me. I
Right.
thought I was
Wow.
making her happy. I
Right.
thought, I was her. I'm my mama, I'm the firstborn, like I'm
Right.
her backbone, like we
You a road
here,
dog. Y'all like
like
this. Yeah.
yeah. So that was my thought process. And then when reality really, really hit me, I felt extremely betrayed. I was sad. And this is something that I'm still
Mm-hmm.
processing still. So definitely betrayal, just rejected, sad. And then again, I feel like at this point in life, she has no use for me. She used
Right.
me to assist her with her children, and when that she no longer had that need, she no longer had use for me. So discarded.
Have you told her this?
I actually wrote her a letter.
Mm-hmm.
I have been no contact with my mother now almost 5 years.
Okay.
Um, and there was a point where I was like, I gotta get this off of my chest. And my mother
Right.
is she's not open to she'll have a conversation, but she's gonna be busy trying to get it off
Right.
of her and
Deflect.
reject and
Yeah.
deflect and yeah. And so I was like, you know what? I need to get this off, but I'm gonna just write it to her and send it to her in an email. I'm
Right.
writing this just so I can let her know how I feel and where I stand, but I'm not writing this for reconciliation. I'm not writing this for
Mm-hmm.
us to reconnect. I'm not writing this for her to have a response. I just feel like as a part of my growth, I need to get this out and she needs to
Right.
know how I feel about this. And so I wrote her a letter and sent it to her.
I love that. I
Hmm.
do. And that takes a lot of courage. It does. And, some people might not see it that way, but it does. It's a very unique situation being the eldest daughter, being a Black eldest daughter, especially because, you're taught to honor your mother, honor your father, and you're kind of like verbally rewarded. There's rarely ever is there any physical reward, but verbally
Hmm.
rewarded for being the best big sister and the best daughter. So to then turn around and, like you said, feel like you've been used. You have. Let's just call a spade a spade. It is an indescribable type of betrayal. How did you manage not to take that into your parenting, take that into your motherhood journey?
I decided very early on that I did not want to be the same mother as my
Right.
I didn't want to have the same relationship with my child that I had with my mother. My relationship with my mother was very, again, transactional. Now that I look back, it was a very
Mm-hmm.
transactional, surface level relationship. And so I made it a point to be different than that. I made it a point to be able to connect and have a solid foundation with my child and have that deep relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And also, approach motherhood also as someone that he could trust and confide in as he would his friends. And I know when we were growing up, our mom used to say, I'm not one of your little
I'm
friends.
not one of your little
Yeah, but I
friends.
think you have to have a certain layer of friendship,
Right.
especially as they start to grow and develop their own personalities, so that they feel comfortable with coming to you and you guys building that relationship. So I would say my son and I are very, very close.
Good. I love that. I love that. And I know that it takes a mental decision every single day to unlearn and
Hmm.
then create new habits when in motherhood, especially when you come from an environment that has not taught you what motherhood means and what it means to be a good mother and a supportive mother and a loving mother. Would you say that the relationship that you had with your mom growing up, that kind of like, because it forces you to develop these people pleasing tendencies, right?
Hmm.
Do you see any correlation between the relationship that you have with your mom and the relationship that you have with your son's father?
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I always say they're the same person, but the opposite
Mm-hmm.
sides of the coin. And that
Yeah.
he's not the first guy that I've dated or had a relationship with that has mirrored my mother
Mm-hmm.
and my relationship with my mother. So, that's a story. But yes, it definitely translated over into my
Mm-hmm.
relationship with him.
Yeah. And that makes sense. I tell people all the time, especially with parentified children, they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to move away." And I tell, if you don't do the work to unlearn those habits are going to show up in other relationships
Mhm.
with your friends, your peers, your coworkers, your children, your partner. You have to unlearn those habits because you will continue to keep running into your mother and your father.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's
Absolutely.
I love that you made that good point. So are you dating now? Do you look for a different, what are you looking for? And like now that you are aware of these habits, you're aware and you're actively working to keep them at bay. What do you look for now?
Oh, I I am currently dating. I've actually been married since the relationship with my son's dad, but it was a very short marriage. If you blink, it was over. I asked for a divorce in 75 days.
Wow, really?
And a part of that was he started to show up and mirror my mother. Like, and I was
Mm-hmm.
able to recognize the patterns and the characteristics. And
Good.
I was like a deer in headlights. And I said, you know what? I know it doesn't look good, but I can't stand this.
75
Yeah.
days. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. Get me out of here.
Yeah. And we didn't even have a chance to move in together
Wow.
or any of that. So me like filing for the divorce
Mm-hmm.
didn't it was like a breakup because I still had my life, my place,
Right.
everything. So that's just how quick it was. But
Yeah.
when that situation occurred, I knew that I had started to heal and I had started to recognize
Good.
things. And I have dated since then, but I wouldn't say marriage is on the horizon for me, and I'm not sure that I will get married again. I'm not
Oh.
sure that's for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually I'm happy that you brought that up. Is it because you just talk to me a little bit about how you came to that conclusion?
I look at that. I feel like being this eldest daughter, being in that role, and then going into motherhood, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my energy and my focus and my attention has been on other people.
Right.
So I feel
Oh,
like
Jesus.
once my goal is to get my son and raise him through school, get him through high school, graduated, and off to college. And at that time, that is going to be my time for just me. Like,
Right. Right.
I'm going to just really, really, really pour into me. And I feel as though if I get married, I have to consider somebody else's feelings. I have to consider somebody else's opinion. And to me, it's taking me right back down that path that I'm
Yeah.
trying to get away from because husbands are needy. They
Right.
require a certain level of attention and a certain level of communication and
Right.
responsibility. And I have been giving of myself since I can remember. And so I think once my son is off to college, which is in 5 years, um,
Around the corner.
yeah, I just envision my life being free, not having to answer to anybody, and just really giving myself back to me.
You have said a word. You That's so true though because you go through this especially when you have like you said that experience as the eldest daughter and then you kind of thrust it into motherhood and not just motherhood but single motherhood. You do find yourself just like I what about me?
Hmm.
You know, who's going to take care of me? How am I going to have time to myself? I'm raising a child. I raised children when I was younger. When do I get time to just breathe?
Hmm.
When do I get time to just not think about anybody other than myself? So I understand. I have said those exact same words. Like I don't want to be responsible for anybody. I don't want anybody else in my space.
Yep,
I
yep,
just I need my space.
yes, yes.
I love that.
I
Yeah,
think
no,
it's
you're
a lot of us probably feel that way, and we're
mhm.
now speaking up about it. So,
I agree. I do think that, the women before us kind of had that you need to have a husband. And like you said, the first thing that came out of your mom's mouth is, well, you need to get married. Why did you decide not to marry your son's father?
I knew it would. I knew the marriage wouldn't last. I didn't want to be attached to him. I figured it out once I got out of the situation, but he was jealous of me, like my
Mm,
ambition, just who I am as a person, and my family relationship. So even though my mother and I are not close, I'm still very close to family, if that makes
right.
sense.
Yeah.
And so I have always been the one to kind of bring the family together. And when he was around during those periods, I could just feel the
Right.
energy shift because he didn't come from a family like that. And so just that and my ambition and just my light, I realized that he was jealous of that. And I'm like, I cannot marry a man that's jealous of me and displaying these abusive
Right.
characteristics. And mm-mm.
Yeah. That is the worst thing is dating someone who's jealous of you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's jarring because you don't expect it. You're like, I love you,
Yeah,
right? I want to share
yeah,
my love. What are you jealous of?
yeah,
We're one. Are you that's
yeah,
weird.
yeah,
So you decided not to marry him, but you did decide to become a mother and have his child. Did you at any point consider not having your child?
yeah.
Did you consider abortion?
I did. I did. Because again, we had actually broken up
Hmm.
when my son was conceived. He came to talk. So prior to me realizing that I was pregnant, I had actually broken up with him. So I was ready to move on and move forward with life. So once I found out, I told him, and he practically like begged me to have my son. And
Hmm.
then I had a conversation with my grandmother. And my grandmother, Christian,
Right.
religious. And I had that conversation like, I don't want to be with him. Like, I don't think it's going to work. And I remember her having the conversation with me and saying, you need to have your baby. Like, I don't think that's the route that you should take. You can do it, you'll be fine. And to me, my grandmother's word was law. So
Right.
when we had that conversation, and then I had the conversation with him, so I'm like, okay, maybe things will be okay, and we can
Hmm.
work through it and be together and be a family and have this baby. And so I made the decision to have him.
Yeah. Looking back on it now, would you have made the same decision?
No,
No.
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hate to say this because I think it's
But
so
it's no,
cliche.
it's
Our
not to
mothers
say
say,
that you don't love your child,
yeah, yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
not to say that at all. You love your
yeah,
child, obviously, right?
yeah.
You're taking
Hmm.
care of him and you're showing up every day and you're the complete different than, what you were raised. But this is the reality that
Hmm.
if you had to do it again, you just wouldn't. And it's nothing to do with him. It's just
Yeah,
you never having the chance to choose yourself
yeah.
ever.
And always
Yeah.
valuing. I spent a lot of time valuing other people's opinion of me,
Right.
seeking that validation. I guess I've always wanted the validation of my mother. Like,
Right.
so I became that people pleaser and always valuing others' opinion over sometimes my own and my
Right.
own voice, knowing that I'm right, but
Right.
because I am that people pleaser, I valued their opinion. So I would have listened to myself.
Right.
I would not have told anybody, not even him. And I would have, you know, done that.
Just went on with it.
Yeah.
And that would have just been between you and
Mhm.
God.
Mhm.
And God forgives.
Sure does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure does.
But you make a really good point about the valuing the opinions, especially of your grandmother and your mother. Now that you're no contact with your mom and your grandmother has gone on to be with the Lord,
Mhm.
what are some ways or what steps have you taken to kind of unlearn those people pleasing habits? What are some things that you've done?
Therapy. So I've gone to therapy and kind of worked through some of that. I think also moving away,
Hmm.
creating that distance between myself and my family, and really, really having the opportunity because of that distance to say, okay, now
Right.
what do you want, and pour into you, and how are you going to move forward with your own thought process. What is it going to take for you to start trusting yourself? So lots of therapy, lots of positive self-talk, lots of
Hmm.
podcasts, lots of looking at other people's with similar experiences, because a lot of times you think there's nobody else experiencing
Right.
this. So I don't have anybody to talk to about this. And so seeing that other people shared similar experiences and exercise and just a lot, it was a lot. I did a lot of work and still
Yeah.
doing a lot of work, but the distance definitely helped. So creating that space.
Yeah.
Isolation, basically, at
Mm-hmm.
first I went into isolation. And I'm kind of in an isolation period again. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
come back again. So yeah.
How does it feel being back in that period?
I'm enjoying this isolation phase. The first one, it was hurtful, it was painful, I was
Right.
going through a lot. This one, I'm a little bit more being more purposeful with this one. And I'm appreciating this one a lot more than I've appreciated the last one. So
Yeah.
it's actually been a positive for me.
Good. Good. You mentioned earlier that you didn't have community. Do you have community now? If you do, how did you build your community? If you don't, what does it look like to have community? What would you like for that to look like?
I will say I am starting to build a community. I'm starting to build a village
Mm-hmm.
for my son and myself. And it has that process. I was able to get into that process by really acknowledging that I didn't have a village and
Right.
acknowledging how that made me feel. And then just real life things happen. I need somebody
Right.
to support me in this process. So what does that support look like? So at first I got very strategic because again we moved here and we don't have family here.
Mm-hmm.
So what does building that village look like? I live in Atlanta, so Atlanta is very black.
It
And I
is.
remember enrolling
I
my
love
son.
that.
Yeah.
I do. We lived in Atlanta for 3 years. I
Okay.
loved it. Yeah.
Okay. So I remember enrolling my son into school and for the first time here, and the administrative staff were all black. The
Mm-hmm.
teachers were black. I met his teacher. She was a black woman, and we met at the open house, and she asked me if he was my only one, and just the questions. Did you just move up here? And do you have family? And me letting her know, no, it's just us. She actually became like a part of the village, and she was like, if you ever need me, she gave me that support. And then the neighborhood that we lived in, my son befriended another little boy, and
Mm-hmm.
that little boy or still does, spends a lot of time with his great grandmother. And so she started to notice them playing together, and she came to me. Same questions. You're here by yourself. She let me know I'm elderly. I'm home all day. If you ever need me, you ever need support, he is more than welcome to come. And I started to, build a relationship with
Right.
her and trust her.
That's
So
beautiful.
I started to create that village, and I was also very strategic. I would do things for myself when he was in school, make
Mm-hmm.
appointments and self care appointments while he
Right.
was in school, and then starting to build now this online community.
Right.
But it took me having to accept it and being open enough to share it so that
Mm-hmm.
other people could become a part of the community.
You're absolutely right. I love that. The accepting part. You
Hmm.
have to accept and acknowledge where you are. And I think sometimes that can be the hardest part is at least for me, for a long time I struggled with being honest with myself and accepting the fact that this is where you are. This is how you got here, right? And then now that we know this, what do we need to do to kind of change our circumstances and change our situation? So I love that you were very open and welcoming to the fact that um, there are other people out here like you, and you just have to put one foot forward and be willing to say hi, be
Hmm.
willing to speak, and that um, isolation can be good, but you have to know how to balance that isolation between getting out, acknowledging people, as well as spending time with yourself.
Hmm.
So I love that. Um, if you could talk to yourself 10 years ago, your son's 2 at this time, what would you tell her about what the next 10 years would look like for her? And how would you help her get through that?
I would definitely offer her a lot of support. I would approach myself 10 years ago with a lot of honesty,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of trust in myself, and trusting that I have what it takes to do this. I can do this to the best of my ability. It's going to be fine. But first, I have to again accept what it is, because it took me so long to accept, like, your mother is not your village. Like, for the
Right,
longest, I just couldn't, I could not, I couldn't put it together for the longest. In my mind, it was, she's gonna come around. Like, that's my
right,
mom. Like, she's gonna come around and it's gonna work out. I mean, I it took me a long time. So just acknowledging what was right in front of me at first, 10 years
mm-hmm.
ago, I think would have set me forward light years had I
Right,
acknowledged it back then. So I would definitely tell myself, you have to be honest with your situation. You have to be honest with where you are. You have to also take accountability for your role and how you ended up here, and forgive yourself. Like, I had to
right,
forgive myself, because this was not what I intended for my life to look like.
right.
And so I had to grieve that. I had to be accountable and then grieve what I thought my life was going to look like, accept it, acknowledge it, find the joy, and then move forward.
You are saying all the right things. No, especially with the accountability piece, right?
Mhm,
Because that can be the hardest part, especially when you are in the thick of it, right?
mhm,
Because you're thinking, this person abandoned me, this person betrayed me, I can't do this, I can't get time off work, I don't have a babysitter. But to sit and acknowledge that, yeah, you played a part
mhm,
in getting yourself here, whether that part is, like you said, valuing the opinions of your mother and your grandmother over yours and not moving forward with terminating your pregnancy. That's accountability.
mhm,
um, not unlearning those people pleasing habits, not recognizing the red flags before
yep,
you got pregnant. I think that that's very, very important as well, because sometimes it's easy to kind of write things off, especially if you know in the back of your mind. But like you said, if this person, if you were raised in this person, in that kind of environment, it's easy to ignore
mhm. It's normal.
ignoring
Hmm.
your partner. You're
Yeah,
like,
it's
this is what I
normal.
know,
Hmm.
we can work through this.
Yep.
Right. So acknowledging the accountability piece in that, yeah, there was definitely some glaring red flags there, and I should have left.
Hmm.
And I didn't.
Hmm.
So yeah. And then giving yourself enough grace to accept where you are. Um, and like you said, just learning and growing and moving forward. What would you say to your son, um, on kind of what this journey has been like for him, for you with him, and what you want it to look like going forward, and kind of what you want for his life?
Hmm.
And when I say what you want for his life, not like what you want him to be when he grows up and in his career, just kind of how do you want him to learn from you and navigate in that space?
I want him to always be himself. And I don't ever want my son to feel as though he cannot come to me, that I am
Mm-hmm.
not in his corner, that he does not have my support, first and foremost. And it's interesting because my son is an extrovert. I am
Mm-hmm.
introverted. And so having him has allowed me, he's taught me so much. And he's a part of this process of me, being open and acknowledging and venturing out into like the social media world and
Right.
all of that, and talking about it. So he has definitely helped me a lot, with that. And I just envision his life, a life full of ease,
Mm-hmm.
a life full of joy. I want him to know he can be whatever he wants to be. He can do whatever he wants to do. Although I tell him, you got to go to college to be an engineer.
Right.
Um, but I want him to know that if he does not have anybody else, he definitely has me, no matter what. So
Right.
that's the life I envision, for us. and a life, like, again, a life full of joy, ease, peace. And I know my son lives a very peaceful life, because sometimes I catch myself and I'm like, does he need to be doing something? You know how you wake up on Saturday
Right.
morning and you're used to having to get up and clean
Right.
up, or you got this and you got this to do. And my son is like completely the opposite. And I've even became the opposite. And I'm like, yeah, he needs to clean up his room. So he and I will have a conversation, and I'll say something like, you need to clean up your room now. You could do it between today and Sunday, but before
Right.
Sunday's over, clean up your room. Like, I give him that space and that time
Right.
frame. Like, it's, to me, yeah, the room needs to be clean, but it's not that serious. Like,
Right.
he, as long as it's done between this time period, he might be in a mood where he doesn't feel like cleaning it up at this moment, and that's okay. He will get it done. And we also have check-ins, and I check
Okay.
in with him and I ask him, how am I doing as your mother? Like,
Hmm.
what can I improve on, and what am I doing well? And we started that very early on, so now it's comfortable. He's comfortable with doing it, and we'll go out to dinner and we'll do it over dinner, and he'll provide me some feedback on my motherhood, which is something I never could have done with my mother. So
Right.
yeah.
Good. I love that. I love that you're building and setting a different foundation. Because when we talk about generational curse breakers, this is what it looks like, right?
Hmm.
That you made the decision to do something different, and now your son can make the decision to be a better parent than you. He won't even have to experience the things that you experienced. And if he does decide to become a parent, that journey can just look so different. He can go into it wanting to be a father. He can go into it wanting to be a husband, and it can be, if that's what he chooses to do with his life, or he can decide that actually I don't want to have kids,
Hmm.
right? And he doesn't have to worry about you being in his ear saying, well, this is what God said and you need to do
Hmm.
this, and
Hmm.
like, so I commend you for the hard work that you've done and waking up and choosing yourself every day, because it's not an easy thing to do, especially because you said you're still working through um, the issues with your mom and what it looks like to be no contact and not have her there, and acknowledging that she used you. So I commend you. It is definitely not easy, but you're clearly doing it, and
Thank
I
you.
love that.
Thank you.
So where can they find you on social media?
So my social media platform, my original page, actually got hacked. So I've been going through that with TikTok.
Really?
Yes, trying to
Wait,
get my
the
page back.
the
Yes,
one that I reached out to you on, or
yes,
did you have a?
yes.
Are you serious?
So that page has been hacked. So I don't
I'm
know
sorry to
what I'm
hear
gonna.
that.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, how did this happen? So I've been working with them, and I don't know how long that's gonna take. So I decided in that moment to create another page,
Hmm.
so that I could at least have access and to continue my momentum, because I didn't want that
Right.
to deter me. I saw that there
Right.
was a need for my content and what it
Absolutely.
was doing, and so I created another page, and that page is at the Professor Bae. I am also the Professor Bae on Instagram as well.
Okay. Are you on YouTube yet?
I do have a YouTube, but
Just
it's
haven't done
I
anything
mean
with
it's just a
it.
few videos on that. I need to do better. I need to do better with YouTube, but I am also on YouTube at the Professor Bae as well.
I totally get it. What about any plans for like any newsletters, any blogs?
So I have been playing around with Substack, and
Okay.
so I'm getting my fingers in that. So that is definitely something that is on the way, because I am definitely a writer. I'm more of a writer at heart than I am a speaker.
Okay.
So I definitely see there being a space. So be on the lookout for my Substack at the Professor Bay. So that's something that's on the way as well. I want to create like a whole community around this, and
Hmm.
I actually have another Instagram,
Okay.
the It Girl Mom Club on
Okay.
Instagram, and the goal for that is to build that community for the moms of one, because a lot of my videos and my content on being a mom of one blew up. I had no idea it was going to do that. And there were so many moms of one coming forward and saying, I'm so thankful that we now have a space to talk
Mm-hmm.
about how we feel in this unique ecosystem of motherhood. And so I created an Instagram for that. So I'm going to grow that page as well and hopefully build a community around the moms of one. And I'm trying to see how I want to incorporate the Mom of One Club connected with the eldest daughter. And then I also talk a lot about education because I am an educator, and the
Okay.
importance of Black women seeking higher education and
Mm-hmm.
how it changed my life as an
Right.
eldest daughter, first gen. So I'm kind of trying to figure out how to blend all of that together. And they always tell you you need a niche. And
Right.
so I'm trying to figure that part out. But I do have the It Girl Mom Club on Instagram.
Okay, great, good. So I'm happy they're able to find you. Thank you so much for joining. It was great talking to you. I really enjoyed learning more about you. I would love to be able to talk to you again. This was such a refreshing conversation. It's not often that you get people to open up and just be so vulnerable and honest about what that journey looks like. Although I do think that because of social media, we are now stepping into a time where women are just like, I'm tired. This is what I don't like about motherhood. This is what I love about motherhood, especially for us who are one and done.
Hmm.
Um, so I appreciate you for starting that and building that community.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and I would absolutely love to come back. There's so much more to unpack and talk about.
Absolutely.